such a time as this.
And welcome back to For Such a Time as This. I am your host, Pastor James Pittman, with you another installment of Revelation. Let us get going. The loop this week, it starts in Revelation 10:1. Then I saw another mighty angel coming down from heaven, wrapped in a cloud with a rainbow over his head. It ends in Revelation 11:19. Then God's temple in heaven was open, and the ark of his covenant was seen within his temple. There were flashes of lightning, rumblings, peals of thunder, and an earthquake, and heavy hail. One thing I thought was interesting in chapter 10, verse 4, and when the seven thunders had sounded, I was about to write, John says, I was about to write, but I heard a voice from heaven saying, seal up what the seven thunders have said, and do not write it down. Something happened. John saw it. John was about to write it down. The voice from heaven said, no. Let's keep that out of the record. We want that to be a surprise when it actually happens. Going on to the highlight, Revelation 11:1. Then I was given a measuring rod like a staff, and I was told, rise and measure the temple of God and the altar and those who worship there. So we're actually talking about the temple, the third temple about to be built. Look at Jerusalem. It's happening over and over and over again. I have a question. The house you live in, do you have to measure it all? Do you have to take any measurements? No, because it's already built. I think in Revelation 11:1, John is talking about the construction that's about to begin to build the third temple. The temple's not built. Otherwise, you don't need to measure the temple of God and the altar and those who worship there. But do not measure the court outside the temple. Leave that out, for it is given over to the nations, and they will trample the holy city for 42 months. What is he saying there? He is saying that they are going to fight over Jerusalem. They are going to fight over Jerusalem for 42 months. That's roughly 3.5 years. But why does he say, do not measure the court outside the temple? Leave it out. That's given over to the nations or the Gentiles. Why does John say that? Oh, lo and behold, that is a picture of the Temple Mount, and many believe, as it seems correct to me, that the outer temple is where the Dome of the Rock is. It's where the Muslim mosque is. And when they go to build the third temple, for political correctness, they are going to leave the Dome of the Rock to the nations, to the Gentiles. And I believe that is why they will not build the outside part of the courts. Wow, what a coincidence. We don't believe in coincidence here at For Such a Time as This. I'll go on to the next highlight in this section, 11:4. These are the two olive trees and the two lampstands that stand before the Lord of the earth. These are the two witnesses, the famous witnesses that we are looking for any day now in Jerusalem. Any day we're looking for the two witnesses. God says these are the two olive trees and the two lampstands stand before the Lord. Verse 5, and if anyone would harm them, fire pours from their mouth and consumes their foes. If anyone would harm them, this is how he is doomed to be killed. They have the power to shut the sky that no rain may fall during the days of their prophesying, and they have power over the waters to turn them into blood and to strike the earth with every kind of plague as often as they desire. And when they have finished their testimony, the beast that rises from the bottomless pit will make war on them, conquer them, and kill them. So there's a battle going on in the city of Jerusalem for 3.5 years. The two witnesses, the two olive trees, and the two lampstands. I don't remember saying it, but this is where I think the olive trees represent Israel. The two lampstands represent the church. And I think there's a grafting back in that the church and Israel, physical Israel, is becoming one. I believe this is where you see the 144,000 early in Revelation. So this is the grafting in I believe Paul talks about in the book of Romans. You have the olive tree and the two lampstands. The last time we saw the lampstands was in where? Revelation 3. At the end of Revelation 3, when God spits them out of his mouth, Jesus spits them out of his mouth as a rejection of the church. The church age is now over, which now begins Daniel's 70th week, which we call the 7-year tribulation. And the first 3.5 years of that 7-year tribulation will be marked by supernatural prophets defending defending Jerusalem. And there's going to be a battle, but after 3.5 years, the beast is going to have power over them. Here's the last part. Revelation 11:9. For 3.5 days, some of the peoples and tribes and languages and nations will gaze at their dead bodies. These are the two witnesses that are killed by the beast. Gaze at their dead bodies and refuse to let them be placed in a tomb. And those who dwell on the earth will rejoice over them and make merry and exchange presents, because these two prophets had been a torment to those who dwell on the earth. But after the 3.5 days, a breath of life from God entered them, and they stood up on their feet, and great fear fell on those who saw them. Then they heard a loud voice from heaven saying to them, "Come up here." And they went up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies watched them. Drop your eyes down to 15. Then the seventh angel blew his trumpet, and there were loud voices in heaven saying, "The kingdom of the world has become the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever." I believe that is the seventh trumpet. In between what you read in verse 12 and 15 is 3.5 years of the great tribulation, in which the Antichrist will make war on the saints and prevail over them and kill them. But that's the highlights for this loop, chapters 10 and 11. If this is moving a little too fast, or if it moved a little too fast for you, go back, look at the beginning. I explained the loops. I explained the angles we're coming from, and these are just highlights as we go through the loops. Revelation, boy, as we look at the news, again, no man knows the day or the hour. But boy, wouldn't it be a privilege to see this? God bless.
For such a time as this,